What's up, guys? Welcome to our channel, Honest Hockey Takes. And you know what time it is? It is Fantasy Fridays! Yeah, in today's video, we're going to be focusing on 10 players that are on the sell high candidate.
Yeah, so basically we're going to be talking about players that have overachieved their value, at least we feel overachieved their value, to start the season and are pretty much at their peak. So you would want to sell these guys now to try to take advantage of their great start. So let's get straight to it. All right, Howin, who's the first person you have on your list?
I'm going to have Gabe Vilardi from the LA Kings. This guy has 13 points in 13 games. It's way too high. I don't have to say too much about this player. I feel like this is one of those new players that kind of is having a really hot start. I don't see it sustaining at all. I feel like eventually in the 20 game mark, this guy's going to dip a little bit. So you definitely want to maximize his value like at this time because right now he's hot point per game.
Yeah, especially having 8 goals already. That's kind of insane. Not many players have that. So just in itself has so much value for the trade market. And like Howin said, this is a guy who really hasn't shown us much before. He's always been injured, so you also run that risk if you keep him too long because he's been injury prone. But also the LA Kings don't tend to score all that many goals overall in a season, so holding on to him too long might be a bad idea.
Yeah, and one last thing I want to add is guys like Victor Arvidsson right now. He is underperforming right now, so eventually you would think that he would start catching up his points, and he would probably take over Gabe Vilardi's spot.
Yeah, so his ice time and power play time might take a hit.
Yeah.
My first candidate I have on my list is Hampus Lindholm from the Boston Bruins. Man, this guy has been red hot to start the season. Without Charlie McAvoy here, Hampus Lindholm has been unstoppable. He has been getting the power play time, and he's been playing so well. He's already amassed 13 points in his first 11 games, which for a defenseman is just obscene. And the thing about Hampus Lindholm, why I say, even though he's been doing this good, you guys should sell him now, is because this is a guy whose career high has never passed 40 points. And he's kind of getting up there in age. So I don't think it's likely he goes anywhere near this pace for the rest of the year. And on top of that, Charlie McAvoy is scheduled to come back within the next week likely. And when that happens, his ice time will fall and his power play time will drop significantly, meaning less points.
Yeah, Hampus Lindholm has really impressed me this season in terms of how well he's been playing in Boston right now, but we know for a fact that it is not sustainable from a fantasy side. His career high was 40 points or something?
It's like 30-something.
30-some points, and he's known to be kind of like a two-way defenseman more so than an offensive defenseman. When Charlie McAvoy comes back, he's going to take over that first power play unit. He's going to take over all those things where you get the fantasy points, so...
And there's no question. Charlie's a more established defenseman and will get that time over the course of the season.
My next player I have on the list would be Jesper Bratt from the New Jersey Devils. We just came back from the hockey game and we just watched him play and we just watched him score a really nice goal today.
Devils 4-3.
I know. Hey, shut up, Scott. I know.
Told you they're good.
They are good. They're a really good team right now. But I love how this team plays fast, which suits Jesper Bratt's game really, really well. Because if you haven't seen Jesper Bratt play, he thrives with his speed, one of the fastest players on the team. Right now, he has 17 points in 11 games, which is exceedingly high for this player. I project this player to be kind of like in the 70s. Maybe point per game player, but definitely not at 1.5 points per games play pace. So right now is a good time to probably trade him at a high value to get some other really good players.
Yeah, so you all know I am like Devils spokesperson here. I try to always spread the word of how good the New Jersey Devils team actually is, and Jesper Bratt's an amazing hockey player. But the thing is, that pace is not sustainable. He is a great player, but he is not like that level of a player. And if you can sell him high now and get a player who has been more consistent over the years, someone you know that you can get close to maybe a point per game from and that is established, that might be a safer bet for y'all. All right, and next up on my list, I have Carter Hart, goalie for the Philadelphia Flyers. It's probably no surprise to anyone here. I have Carter Hart because I am not a believer in the game of the Philadelphia Flyers. I think this hot start will fall over time. I don't really think they can keep putting up this pace of wins and points. And Carter Hart has started this season 5-0 with a .943 save percentage. In his career, he has not been anywhere near these kinds of numbers. His highest win rate ever was 24 wins in a full season, and the last 2 years, he was over a 3 goals against average. That's not someone I feel confident in trusting, especially on a team that I don't think has a lot of support around him.
Yeah, this one is. Listen, I get it. Philadelphia Flyers. I don't see them sustaining whatever pace they're at right now in terms
They're
of winning.
winning way too much.
Yeah, they're winning way too much. Even though I like the Philadelphia Flyers, I know they're probably not going to make the playoffs this year. So yeah, five. Right now, Carter Hart has 5 wins and 0 losses and 94 3-save percentage. That's really freaking high right now. That's exceedingly high. So I think it's a good time to sell high on him right now. Do I think Carter Hart's a good goalie? Yes, he's a good goalie, and he is benefiting playing under Torch system. But eventually, when the games get to like 20, 30 games into the season, when the games get way tougher, I would definitely start to see expect to see Philadelphia Flyers to kind of drop in the standings, and so would Carter Hart's save percentage.
Yeah, and there's a lot of goalies who are very talented, consistent goalies who have started this year struggling very hard, and those might be the type of goalies you'd look to try to approach to trade Carter Hart for.
Yeah, and that's what we said in our last video. The last video we had Thatcher Demko and Jack Campbell, so we would suggest
there's some other options that at the beginning of the year, these guys would have been ranked way higher than Carter Hart.
Yeah.
So those would be types of targets you try to look for, a more established goalie.
Yep. So the next player I have on the list would be Josh Morrissey from the Winnipeg Jets. Josh Morrissey right now, in 10 games, he has 9 assists, so 9 points, which is, to me, staggering, which is insane. Because with Josh Morrissey, the fun fact about Josh Morrissey is in the last 3 fantasy teams I've had Josh Morrissey in all 3 of them, just because he's a cheap player to have as my 5th, 6th defenseman. So the reason, and he would get roughly in the 40, I would expect him to get about the 40-point mark, like 35 to 40 some point mark. Right now he's at almost a point per game pace, which is absolutely unsustainable. And we all know that eventually Neil Pionk is probably the better defenseman in terms of offensive instinct and offensive ability. He would probably take away power play 1 eventually, if he's not already. So yeah, I see Josh Morrissey as more of a 2-way defenseman. He's a very good real life defenseman, but not for fantasy hockey purposes.
Yeah, Josh Morrissey is a guy that most years when I'm playing fantasy hockey, he's kind of that guy you rotate as your 5th defenseman most of the time, unless your defense core is really bad, or he's a guy you usually in more shallow leagues are dropping and then re-adding certain times throughout the year. But the thing about Josh Morrissey's game, like he's a great player overall. Like I love the player in actual hockey, but like they split so much time between Neil Pionk and him on the power play 1 that it is so hard to predict how long each one of them is going to get like to actually play on that power play 1 throughout a full 82 game season. And right now, being so high point per game wise, like he's at 0.9 points per game as a defenseman, and his career average is like less than 0.5. So I wouldn't want to trust that for a 27-year-old defenseman. Next up on my list, I have Matt Duchene from the Nashville Predators. I'm not even going to hide it, guys. I am not a fan of the Nashville Predators. And it's not just that I'm not a fan of them. I just don't believe that they can sustain the scoring pace they had last year. And to start this year, Duchene has 11 points in 11 games. And I really don't think for a full season again, he's going to be able to put up that point per game production. Because this is a team that over the last 5-6 years has not been able to score a lot. And sure, they got better last year, but they've already showed signs of faltering this year, and the team as a whole has looked a lot worse.
Yeah, I mean, how many of those points did he score empty netters too?
Yeah, like he's gotten a couple of these points through passes and goals on empty nets already, and the combination of that, and a lot of them are coming in blowouts when the team's already up 6-2 or 5-2. So that's the reason that they're not coming at opportune times that is more repeatable offense.
Yeah, and also on top of that, I feel like Matt Duchene's one of the older players that we have on this list. And I feel like last year he had his peak year for somehow. He had 86 points. Like we said, we don't see him replicating this. Nashville Predators to us are not a playoff team. Right now, they're not even showing that they're a playoff team. We expect the performance of almost every player on this roster to drop. So
And the thing about Matt Duchene, kind of has Howin said there, is you're getting the name brand because he is an older player. So that can actually really help you when you're trying to sell someone high. Because you got last year's like stats where he put up like 86 points, and then you got this year's decent start. That really is a good spot to try to sell high on a player with a name value like Duchene.
So my next player I have on my list will be a goaltender, and it will be from the Detroit Red Wings, and it will be Ville Husso. So the interesting thing about goalies with fantasy hockey is that, generally speaking, you want wins with fantasy hockey. I know he had a big win today against the Washington Capitals, a 3-1 win. Right now, he possesses over a 9.3 save percentage, which is, to me, crazy, with a 4 wins and 1 loss right now. It looks all good right now, but keep in mind, this is only, first 10 games of the season, and you don't know how, right now, from what I've seen from Detroit lately in the last 3 games, they're starting to dip, but now they're starting to come back to earth a little bit. They had a really hot start, now they're coming back to earth a little bit. So I feel like as of right now, I don't see Detroit as a playoff team, and because I don't feel that they're a playoff team, they're not going to win as many games, and winning games are a big part of fantasy hockey. So
yeah, I think that Detroit's a team that is on the up and coming, but if they're not going to be a playoff team and they're going to say be like 6th in the division, you're probably not going to get a lot of wins. And you also got to add in the fact that this team is like very focused on splitting goaltenders. They play Nedeljkovic a lot more than they should. Even though he is terrible and Husso is a lot better, he's still splitting a lot of starts, and that also subtracts value from your goaltenders, especially in fantasy. But on top of this, you can also sell Husso at a pretty good price right now, not just because of the start this year, but because a lot of people still have the recency bias of last year and how well he played for St. Louis, which is obviously a much better team that inflated his stats. Next up on my list, I have defenseman Mikhail Sergachev from the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now, this is a great hockey player, guys. Sergachev is got like the complete package. This guy hits, he blocks, and he's starting to put up some points. The only problem for me is he's putting up a little too many points, and I don't think he could sustain this pace. He's already started this year with 10 points in the first 11 games on the Tampa Bay Lightning. And the thing with this is that he is not the number 1 defenseman on this team. That is Victor Hedman. And recently, Victor Hedman has missed some time with nagging injuries. And that has given Sergachev a big opportunity to jump into that offensive role and take that power play 1. But make no mistake, once Hedman is healthy, Sergachev's numbers offensively are going to dip. And before that happens, it would be ideal for you guys to try to maximize value on this player.
yeah, sell him now because Scott said, Hedman is still the number 1 defenseman on this team. I don't care that he signed that big contract. That big contract gives him safety that he is with the Tampa Bay for another X amount of years. But we all know that Victor Hedman is still the best
Top three
defenseman.
top 3 defenseman in the league.
Top 3 defenseman in the league, and he's going to take back that power play 1 when he gets back. So sell him now. So my next player will be Martin Necas from the Carolina Hurricanes. He is a very good hockey player outside of fantasy hockey. I mean, he's pretty good at fantasy hockey as well, but like he in real life, he is extremely underrated. He is extremely good, talented hockey player. He can do a lot of things both defensively and offensively. But for fantasy hockey purposes, we feel like 14 points in 10 games is a little high for him. We all know that the best player on this team is Sebastian Aho and Andrei Svechnikov. We all know that. And so eventually those guys will take back the reins. We know that. But Martin Necas, I feel like he's kind of overperforming right now. And right now would be a good, wise idea to probably sell high on him right now, because I think a lot of people are looking at this player and be like, wow, this guy's worth a lot. He's probably going to blow up. But no, I think still Aho's team here.
Yeah, and the problem with this is not that he's just playing so well. He's literally leading this team by a pretty good margin in points. And we all know that's not going to happen. He's not going to keep up that pace. Like 14 points in 10 games is a little excessive. He's playing good hockey. And once again, we put him recently on a video as a very underrated player overall. But he is not so underrated that he's going to be like a 120-point player like the pace he's on right now. So I would try to capitalize on his value high and try to find a forward who might be more of a consistent 65, 70-point player that you could swap him for.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Martin Necas, again, is a really good player, but I see him more as like a 70-point pace out of 82 games player.
Yeah, he's not going to break 80 points, guys.
Yeah.
I don't want to burst the bubble on anybody, but he's just not that guy.
Yeah.
And our final player for our Fantasy Friday, we have Victor Olofsson from the Buffalo Sabres. Now, Buffalo is like white hot right now. They're just unstoppable. They're like the surprise of the year for success. It's amazing. And you know what? I kind of like to see it because Buffalo hasn't really had that much success lately. So it's nice to see them doing well. So good on you, Buffalo. But Victor Olofsson is on an unsustainable pace right now. He has scored way too much. And it's not just that he scored too much. It's how he's been getting some of these goals is not a way that can continuously happen. So far to start the season, Victor Olofsson in 10 games has scored 8 goals, adding 1 assist for 9 points. Although a couple of these have been empty net goals, and I'm not trying to hate on them, they're all worth the same in fantasy, but if you're trying to predict long-term success, you can't assume that he's going to keep padding all these goals when like 3 of them already have been empty net goals. And on top of that, his career high for goals in a 70-plus game season is 20 on the nose. So if he's already got 8 and 10 games and his career high is 20 and the guy's 27 years old, do you really think he's going to be able to continue to produce at that level?
Yeah, and one of the I've had Victor Olofsson in a lot of my teams in the past, and one of the things I can say about him is that the most valuable assets in terms of goal scorer in fantasy hockey is that they can consistently get points almost every game or every second game. So it's kind of more predictable. I feel like with Victor Olofsson, he would get no points for like a couple of 3 games, and then he'll get like 2 goals all of a sudden for 1 game, and then he'll disappear. And
very streaky player.
Very streaky player. And like Scott said, a lot of goals right now, he scored empty netters. Victor Olofsson, to me, is a good shooter and everything, but at the same time, Buffalo's main driver of the offense is that line of Tage Thompson, Jeff Skinner, and Alex Tuch is these 3 guys. So is not Victor Olofsson.
He's not really a primary option.
Yeah.
And long term, maybe not right now, but I'd also worry about guys like Jack Quinn, who actually are kind of a little more talented, taking in some more of that ice time from him. Well, guys, that concludes our Fantasy Friday special. I hope you guys took some notes and learned some new stuff and are ready to improve your teams. And until next time, we'll see you later.
Bye.